Here on show there is 5 large-scale woodcuts and a series of prints that goes with them. And they initiated really from an exhibition I had in Bristol University, and I was asked to facilitate a space during the Impact conference, printmaking conference, and I was given a 70-foot outdoor space. So the idea of the space being outdoors was that I could make something to fit in the corridor, the outside corridor, but at the same time exhibit the prints on paper. So we've got 2 different things here. You've got the blocks and then you've got the prints onto paper. So in this particular space, I made these blocks because these are actually the carvings and the drawings of the image. And then from these, we ink these up and take prints onto the paper, which is a final result, as you know. But this became an integral part of actual work, of making work and making the carving. They come from a real keen interest in running, fell running. So that's the title of the exhibition as well, Terrestrial Locomotion, which is kind of a Wikipedia explanation of what that actually means is fell running, or running on the land. Okay, and what I actually do, if I just explain how these came about, they really are, I would go on lots of different runs, distances and times and places, and wherever I am at the time I will take a small sketchbook and I run a distance, get to the end of that distance and draw whatever's in front of me on a small piece of paper about the size of a 50p coin. And then from that drawing I'll go back to the studio, and in time and over time these come out much larger, 8-foot square. And as you can see on this one, it actually says Thompson's Park, Cardiff, 41.09 is the time, 4.98 miles, 6,406 steps. So that's the title of the work as well. So that's how they came about. A lot of this is on marine ply. So you have one layer of wood this way, then this way, then this way, which you can exploit when cutting it. So a lot of this is cut with chisels. Some of this is drawn and cut with circular saws and drills. And a lot of it's just scraped with wire brushes, etc. So it's quite free and hopefully quite kind of, well, raw, if you like. And it's terms of it, ways it's mark making, with what it is, an exercise in mark making. But then when you see the print, it becomes something else. This one, Nandi, is a Black Mountains, Brecon Beacons, another fell run I did. Okay, same principle as the previous. Because of doing woodcuts for some time, I know what kind of marks I can get. They can cut them certain ways, knowing that I give that effect. So what I tend to do is give a whole range of different problems to myself by using different tools. This mark here is to represent the kind of movement of the grass. So I would use a big tool, sanding disc, with lots of serious blades on it, and jigger it and cut quite randomly over the surface. I'd probably start off by painting it on black ink and wood. And when that painting's kind of I'm happy with, it's only then I'll start cutting it. So then you start cutting, the cut marks are your white marks. The bits you leave behind are the black marks, the positives. So when you take a print from it, that's what you get. It's a direct reversed image. So every surface has to differ. Otherwise it just looks very flat. It's really important that you get the right amount of ink on the surface, and it's even from there right down to there. The paper goes on top and I let it sit on top for about half an hour, and the ink will actually absorb into the paper and almost glue it on the surface. And with a gentle pressure with your hands to start with, it starts coming through the back of the paper, and then gently, believe it or not, a wooden spoon about that big, just carefully burnishing all the marks. And I start at the top and I just work all the way down, and then hopefully the pressure on the back is even, so I know the print on the other side will become even. I started these in Aberystwyth Art Centre, did 5, took me 3 months to actually do the drawings to the point where I was happy. For me that takes the most time. Okay, then painting them onto the wood as well. Don't forget, everything you do in print is back to front. So I have to work in reverse and thinking all the time in reverse. Probably to cut that probably takes about, I can't remember, half a day, and then about 3 hours to print it, each half. And at £65 a sheet of paper, you only get a couple of goes. As you notice on Thompson's Park, and then this one as well, is the name of the area where it is silver mine. It's written backwards. So therefore, being backwards, everything is back to front, and you print round the other way. And also on this one, I've cut and carved the text out, like I say, with the title and the mileage and the distance. But as soon as I finish cutting it, I paint it out. It's not actually printed ever. So again, it's a kind of a step forward to the next stage maybe. And that one is actually of the silver mine, is the construction. That's all that's left up there in the valley, or the actual silver mine itself. But I just thought it was a very strong shape and a very nice piece of construction. I think it works quite well, like displayed in that way. On the last one, the Elam Valley one, is actually written around the other way so you can read it, which is actually probably not a big thing to most of you, but to me it's actually quite a big thing, because it's almost the woodcut is no longer a woodcut, it's just become a piece of work. And it's much more, I think this one's much more kind of detailed. Definitely. You know? I think these kind of are more like my working drawings. Being a printer really, are kind of, my working drawings are sketches, but they're also dry points, they're also etchings. And I will make a run edition of these, I guess, but that's not really important. It's more about just doing a quick drawing. And it's actually quite refreshing to work back into a square, a rectangle, and quite small. It's actually so fast in comparison to these now. So these are really good, kind of depict the kind of the idea of a crank on a wall, and you turn a handle and the wheel goes around, and on the end of the wheel there's these posts with trainers on them, and they're working around like a running machine, recording data as it goes around. Similar with this one, similar with this one. This is more of a jig, and the shoes go up and down on top of a surface. Okay, so it's the act of running. They're actually totally fictitious and make-believe, but is now, I was just saying earlier that my next series of works I would like to do is actually, I've actually done them. I've got 6 etching plates I've cut to size and fitted onto the base of my old trainers. So the idea is that I can actually run with the etching plates on my feet. Okay, and then you record the actual marks from where you start, you do the round circle wherever it may be, and it records all the data in terms of scratching the marks. And then you come back and you print those dry points as plates. And then you show the prints of those dry points, and then the plates underneath. So as a bit of a similar thing to this, but it's the data and it's recording your travel, your movements. This video is a very short version of the studios, but the music is actually a street artist, and he's busker, but he was just actually, he come from a kind of living on the street for years, and he came up and we really liked his music, so I brought a CD off him, and since I asked him if it's okay, so he's got the backing music to the studio. So it's not produced or records or anything like that, but it's just this guy who plays a fiddle in the Bronx. So if you listen to the music, it's a very poignant part of the studio really. Basically I was at Chapter for 10 years, back in '97, and when we left Chapter, I have obviously over time accumulated a lot of presses and machinery and bits and bobs. And when I took up a new space, it had to be a space that I was going to be at for a period of time, but also a space that I really thought I was going to be at for a while, you know. And this opportunity for this old cattle and pig shed across the road from Chapter Arts Centre had been there since 1800s, as you can see. There's a perfect location for that, but at the time we got it, it was quite in disrepair. Got holes in the ceiling, no electricity, no heating, etc, etc. So what we did is I spent basically a year and a half with no budget and hardly any money. In fact, I had to remortgage my house to get the cash to buy it, so we bought this building. And then spent the whole time, year and a half, making the new space, and the space being an open access print studio, which does 3 major things. It's open access for the general public to come in and use. We do weekend workshops. I run them, other people come in and run their own workshops from the space. And we're now concentrating more on professional editions for professional artists. So artists will come up and do a series of works. It doesn't have to be printmaking. So it can be any form of work that maybe has an element of print in it. And it's just sort of like the other side of me, if you like. It's kind of, my father once said, you've got to get an apprenticeship, son. And in the art and design, it was doing print. So I learned how to do print, learned how to use the presses, did all that as terms of a degree in MA in Brighton and stuff. And then now I can apply it properly, and I have the expertise in terms of making editions and studio prints. But then this show is more about the work I've done rather than the studio. It's taken a long time to get there.